Hey everybody, I found out recently that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I had actually originally made a more detailed video, but it was just getting way too personal. And I'm not exactly comfortable talking about it. I mean, I can do this. There's nobody in the room, so I'm just kind of talking to myself. But I have to actually put this stuff up and share. I mean, I don't have to, but I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety 11 years ago, almost exactly 11 years ago. I was diagnosed in May of 2008 following a 1-month cutting spree. Looking back, I should have been diagnosed a heck of a lot sooner. I was seeing a therapist in 4th grade. I was seeing a therapist my freshman and sophomore year of college. How I got by with cutting and the guidance counselor not finding out, I have no idea. From what I understand, my RA and my academic advisor both kind of knew something was up. They didn't know what was up, but they knew something was going on. I was self-injuring a long time before the whole cutting thing came out. I may be 10 years clean from cutting, but self-injury, no. I wish very much. But prime example that I can come up with right away, our pastor had mentioned me in a sermon last Sunday. Basically, I had messaged him and said, I feel like such a fake. And he's like, you mean in terms of your anxiety? And I'm like, no, in terms of being a Christian. Because I don't read the Bible very much or at all. Haven't read the Bible all the way through in almost a decade. A lot of my reading's kind of gone down the tubes. I haven't done devotionals. I don't really pray. Unless I'm desperate. So it's not something I'm proud of. And he basically said in his sermon that a friend of his had contacted him and said that they felt like a fake Christian because I, don't do this, that, and the other thing. And he basically said, I can't remember exactly what he said because I kind of spaced out a little because I was starting to go very anxious. But I think he said that was okay. And, he kind of came up to me during communion. He's like, you're amazing. And I'm flipping the heck out. And I think I might have consciously or inadvertently is up for grabs, but gone and scratched myself. And again, something I'm not proud of. And it's definitely something I struggle with. I really struggle with talking about or opening up that door. As I said, with mental health, there is such a stigma. And I think especially with cutting and self-injury in particular, people think, once you start, you're screwed. I'm a perfect example, or not so perfect example, of how that's not true. I mean, yes, I self-injure still. I've been self-injuring since I was 4 when I first bit myself on the hand. I remember vividly, I was at daycare and I was being made fun of for being a crybaby. And rather than being made fun of further for being a crybaby by crying because I was a very sensitive child, I bit myself on the hand. And that was the start of a cycle of picking and pulling hangnails and popping zits whenever I got them. I mean, things that I still do. And of course the scratching thing. It just got to a point where it wasn't enough. And I think part of it was that I didn't have my physical outlet of release anymore. I wasn't in dance anymore. I'd been in dance for years. the fact that things were changing. My mom had moved out of my childhood home, and my dad had moved out of the apartment that I had, grown up in once the divorce happened. So those two safe havens that I had were gone. My best friend had died my senior year of high school, but my cutting was a couple years beyond that. And of course the self-injury was before. And, it's hard, but you can come back from stuff like this. One thing that I don't talk about very often, because it embarrasses the living daylights out of me, is that there were a couple times, well, I had one close call that wasn't on purpose, but there was a planned attempt to take myself out of the picture. I felt that my family was better off without me. The plan was not out of selfishness so much as I didn't want my family to be hurt by me anymore. And I think if you talk to people who have attempted suicide, I think that's what a lot of them would probably say as well, that they weren't doing it to try to seek attention, that they weren't so much being selfish about it, they were being selfless. And, that's what depression does. It's a backwards way of thinking. And I've been in therapy for 11 years. This planned thing would have happened almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago at the end of the month. And again, it's not something I talk about because, one, it embarrasses me. And two, I don't like the idea of glorifying it. And most importantly, I know this is going to hurt family. I know it is. Family and friends who don't already know are going to get hurt by this revelation. And the thing I want to emphasize, and I hope that people who have lost loved ones to suicide, I hope they can take this from it. It most likely wasn't you. It wasn't something you did. It was that the depression finally won. And it's hard to acknowledge that. It's hard to... Because I think when someone dies, we feel like we have to place blame. For the longest time after my best friend had died, I blamed myself for what happened. Because I wasn't around very much. Her accident happened at 9:47 p.m. I was supposed to get off of work at 9:30. I ended up getting off at 10 o'clock. And I kept thinking, if I had only gotten off at 9:30, I could have called her. Maybe I could have talked her into staying put. Doesn't help that I had a premonition about the accident. Granted, it was several years prior. Her hair was short. The girl in my premonition's hair was in a ponytail. My hair was halfway down my back, so it wasn't me. The hair was too short. But, it was dark, so I couldn't make out who it was, and unfortunately, I was wrong. On the flip side of that, I've been assured by her boyfriend that he did try to get her to stay put. That she was just being who she was. And the other thing is she was very practical. So even if I had told her about the premonition, for one, I had it in junior high. This was like 4 years later. There's no way I could have known date, time, what have you. And again, she was so practical, I don't think she would have believed me anyway. Or if she would have believed me, she would have just lived her life to the fullest. And yeah, I mean, but again, I think because of the premonition and because I wasn't around very much, because we'd had a fight the day before, I couldn't even tell you what about, even the days after. It was something stupid and petty, I know that. But I was like, if I could have had one phone call in, if I could have told her goodbye. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. But, you know, you think these things, but the reality is there's nothing you could have done different. And at the end of the day, it's on them, and it's between them and God. That's the way it is. It's a hard reality, but that is the way it is. And so, a lot of reworking has had to be done. I had a therapist from 2008 to 2013, and then I went through DBT, and because of that, I had to switch therapists, and I dug my heels into that. I'm very blessed that the therapist I've had since 2013 is such a wonderful therapist. I still see her every 2 weeks, just to make sure, you know, depression, anxiety, all that stuff's in check. Because I realize that there isn't a magic pill that's going to make me better. Medication helps, but, and this is what I want you guys to take from this video. A lot of it is just having someone to talk to who will listen and who cares, and not necessarily in my therapist's case, but is willing to hug you and cry with you, and, you know, or not cry with you, just let you cry and have you feel secure in your crying. Because so often we are taught, you know, crying is bad, which is why I'm having such a hard time doing it right now. But crying is not a bad thing. As my academic advisor said, she feels sorry for anybody who can't cry, because it's a release of emotions that they don't have. So there's not really a good way to wrap up this video. But again, with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, I'm hoping that my story can help somebody somewhere, or at least bring awareness and lower the stigma, even if it's just to a couple people. That would mean the world to me. So, that's it, and hopefully I'll be getting back to my regular, not so depressing content soon, although I may post some stuff in the future about what I've gone through, so, thanks.